I don't have much of a social life outside of breaking and work, just because all I'm doing is working and breaking. Um, I don't really get to see many friends or family just because I'm constantly at practice or I'm constantly at a jam on the weekends, and whenever I'm not, I'm just laying on my couch doing nothing and I'm a complete potato all weekend because I can't function. So, like there's a lot that I've kind of always not really thought about because I knew what was important to me. But I think for a lot of people, those sacrifices are challenging to make.
Very quickly, before we get into it all, just want to say a big thank you to Freestyle Session, who are bringing us today's show. We've got a special discount for all of our viewers here at Stance Elements. Go to freestylesession.com and use the code Stance Elements at checkout for 20% off your total order. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. Let's get straight into this, guys. If you watched the Red Bull BC1 USA Cypher, you will have seen that Ali won for the B-Boys and Sunny won for the B-Girls. And I've got Sunny with me right now. Sunny, it's such a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the channel.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. Lucky to be here.
When you think back to the weekend of the Red Bull BC1 USA, walk me over just how was the whole weekend for you?
You know, that weekend was actually a really special weekend for me because my family was there. So it's funny how it worked out. My mom and my aunt just happened to be in LA visiting my brother when I texted him to tell him that BC1 US finals was happening. And he was like, "Oh, great, mom and your aunt are going to be there." And I was like, "Ugh." So I told my mom, and then she was like, "Oh, your aunt wants to see you dance, so let's get tickets." It's the first time they've ever seen breaking, and up till now they haven't really been supportive. So I was pretty nervous about that piece of the event. But the thing that kind of worked out is that we got to spend time together Friday night before the battle. I had a home cooked meal. I was feeling really good. I think mentally it put me in a really good place for the weekend. And then like the day of the event, it was kind of like the typical, like everything was like pretty organized, put together. We had our time to go everywhere, showed up, did our thing, kind of got in the mind space to dance. I walk out for the first battle and I see my mom, like just like right there, she's standing, there's like a couple stairs up so I can see her, my brother, my aunt, all watching, and they're super excited. And so that like really made me feel good. And I feel like that kind of like set me up to just let loose and have fun in the battles. And then the next round, what was funny is they disappeared, or so I thought. And I was like, where did my mom go? Because I saw my brother and I was like, oh my God, she left. And turns out she'd actually elbowed her way to the front and was sitting right outside the circle so she could get like front row seats.
No
And so when I
way.
walked out, I saw her and I was like, yes, and she was so excited. And so like having them be there and to witness an event of the caliber of Red Bull. So, the production of these events is like, really good in terms of for breaking events in general. So, having her there and being able to experience it at a Red Bull event was really amazing. And then to win and have her there with me was like the best experience ever. She told me she's converted and she likes breaking now. And so, yeah, the whole weekend, like, honestly, everything else, it went really well. It was smooth. It, with the Red Bull events, I feel like they typically are. But that was like really what made the entire weekend for me, is having the support of my family there. For the first time ever, for my mom, especially. So that was really awesome.
So that was the first time that they
Yeah.
had seen you.
Yep.
I see, because when you talk to people about having their families there, you get a mixed response. Some people love it when their family's there, others get a bit on edge about it, but it sounds like you just loved it when they were there watching.
Initially I was really anxious. I was worried she'd be like judgmental of the people who were there, and like maybe the smell and how crowded and hot it gets, or even like how loud it is, because I come from a household where like we didn't really play music at home. It was always quiet. And so, I was just I was pretty anxious about everything. And then the other piece is obviously with the Olympics coming up and me wanting to be there and to be a part of this whole journey and and I'm looking to move my life into breaking, full time. Like I've been nervous about having support from my family up till now. And so all of that leading up was a little bit like all in the back of my head. But to be there and to watch my mom be so supportive, just fully supportive, like nothing else mattered. She was just there and she loved it. Like that was really amazing. But yeah, up till now, like I was definitely like, I'm not really sure.
Was it a thing within your family where it just sounds like from what you're saying they were just a bit uncertain about everything, and
Oh yeah.
they weren't exactly so sure, at least at first, about how successful you could be with it. Not to say you had to be successful with it, but when naturally a lot of people get into something that's artistic, the rest of the family are a bit unsure about it until they see something like this happen.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think, honestly, up till now, I feel like my parents or my mom treated this like a novelty. Like, oh, she does it on the side and it's for fun and who cares because she has a full-time job and that's where she really makes money and she'll make a living and she'll be fine. Um, so it was kind of like just seen as like a little thing that I do and like nobody really cared about it. Um, so then when I mentioned the Olympics, I think they started seeing it as being more serious, but it still wasn't real. They had never really experienced it. Um, and so I think it was when they actually went and saw it in person and saw how amazing breaking really is that they were like, oh, okay, this is real. She can do this. And I think it's kind of the Olympics has helped to build a bit more credibility around breaking. Obviously for us, breaking is what we love to do, and it's obviously a real thing. But for so many other people who are looking in, so many people see it as still like that thing that kids do on the street on cardboard. You know, there's so many people out there who don't understand that this has grown so much and is so much more than just that. Not that that isn't a piece that still, exists for some people, but there is opportunity to make a living off of breaking and do a lot more with it. So yeah, there was a lot of doubt before.
So you said that you work and that this is something that you do on the side, but had you have chosen to make this a full-time thing from years ago, do you think things would have worked out the way that they have done?
Um, I think if I had been doing this full time from the start, I would probably, I mean, hopefully I'd be better, right? But honestly, I'm not too sure. Because I think especially as a female breaker, it's more difficult to make a living off of breaking. I think there's less opportunity. So had I tried to make that jump before, I think I don't know, I may have just burned out trying to make something work that wasn't working. Like I'm not really sure where I would be. Um, because breaking a few years ago, the landscape was pretty different from what it is today. Um, yeah, who knows? I could either be really amazing or I might have burnt out and quit.
There's bound to be people watching that are on that level of thinking. They want to make it their full-time thing, or maybe they already have done. But from what you said, they could be experiencing the same things. Maybe they are really successful and they want to make the transition to really make it their full-time thing, or maybe they're just feeling a little discouraged and not as enthusiastic about it anymore. When you talk about finding a balance between your work and this, what advice would you give?
You know, I would say that if you're trying to work full time and pursue breaking at a high level, there's some major sacrifices that you have to make. And I don't know that all of them are like healthy for you physically and mentally. And I have been doing that for a long time. And I think one of the things that I've learned is that my mental has really suffered from trying to push too hard in two lanes of my life. Um, so, you know, I honestly, a lot of people come to me and they ask me how I do it. And in the past, I would say, oh, you just have to like you have to give up a lot, but it's possible. As things are getting more intense with breaking, and as the level is increasing, and as more and more people are actually pursuing it full time and really training like other athletes, like full-time athletes, I think it's less and less feasible to actually have balance between the two, um, without giving up something major, and I think that that major piece is your mental. It's just not really feasible to keep going on both fronts at such a high level. So I think with that said, it's just like, I think proceed with caution if you're trying to do both. And I would recommend, if you can, to pick the one that you really want to go with and stick with it. And really kind of just trust your gut and work hard, because I honestly, like today, I wouldn't recommend other people to try and do both as I have, because of like the ups and downs that I've gone through, to get where I am today.
I see. I mean, there's a lot to take from that. And obviously, depending on where your mindset is at, you might think, well, I thought I've already sacrificed a lot. You're saying that I need to sacrifice a lot more. Or possibly they can go, you know what? I think I could maybe push myself a little harder. Just it depends on where their life is at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, it's not like you have to give up one fully for the other. I think what it is for me, and what makes it most challenging, is I have a really demanding corporate job. Whereas like maybe if you have a life that's in breaking, whether like you have a studio, or whether you have some sort of organization, there is a little bit more overlap. So I think maybe in those instances, it might be a little bit easier to find some synergy there. So like, you can squeeze your practice sessions in while you're at the studio or while you're working, as opposed to like working a job that demands so much out of you and then having to try and go to practice in the evening after that. But I, again, like my situation is specific. And so it doesn't mean that there isn't a way. I think just that's coming from my experience and kind of my advice. But like, obviously I don't have much of a social life outside of breaking and work, just because all I'm doing is working and breaking. I don't really get to see many friends or family, just because I'm constantly at practice or I'm constantly at a jam on the weekends, and whenever I'm not, I'm just laying on my couch doing nothing, and I'm a complete potato all weekend because I can't function. So, like there's a lot that I've kind of always not really thought about, because I knew what was important to me. But I think for a lot of people, those sacrifices are challenging to make. Like I only see my family like once or twice a year, given they don't live here, but like those trips are hard because I'm traveling so much for breaking. So yeah, there's a lot, I think, to consider when you're trying to push so hard in more than one place.
I think that's maybe the most honest answer that anybody has ever given when an artist has to talk about what the sacrifices are. You get a sense of the sacrifices that people have, but I think that's maybe the most honest that anybody has ever given, that you won't see your family that much when you're not working, when you're not at an event and stuff. You're just on your own, just sort of trying to rest. And a lot of people that I talk to, they sort of go through a similar thing, but they don't word it in the same way. So I really hope that everybody watching this sort of has that insight now, and it's coming from someone that is operating at a world level. So obviously it's not just someone talking just any random shit. like like this is a proper account of someone operating at such a high level while also trying to operate at a high level within their work as well. But the last thing I want to ask, just to round this whole thing off, the Red Bull BC One World Finals is later this year, and now you're taking part in the Last Chance cipher. So what will your training look like on the lead up to it, and what are your expectations?
So actually how I'm treating the world finals is like, it's like a milestone, but it's not like an end goal, right? Personally, my end goal is the Olympics. So I'm not going to necessarily change my training just for the world finals. However, what kind of works out is there's like a world championship event a World Series event happening not that long before the World Finals. So my thought process is if I'm physically ready for the World Championship events, then I'm also ready for the World Finals. Um, the thing about the World Finals for me is that there's less pressure mentally than there is for these like Olympic events. So I'm actually hoping that I can go and kind of let loose and have fun and still do well that way. I have found in the past that I actually perform better when I'm able to just kind of like freestyle a bit more and smile and laugh and like just, go and show who I am as opposed to being a little hung up on the performance. But the other piece though that there is with the World Finals that there isn't for some of these events is that it's in New York. And I feel like I have to represent the city that I'm living in at at the World Finals because this is where it all started. So there is a piece there that I kind of want to see through of just like being there to represent for New York City. But at the end of the day, the best way to represent is to go have fun and be me. And to do it my way. So I think in terms of, training, like I've obviously changed the way I've been training over the past couple months. Now I have like a strength and conditioning coach separate from breaking. And then I have another person that I work with for kind of like more mental piece, but also still physical. So the training has changed over the recent months. And so that's going to continue through this. And I think I'm definitely feeling the benefits of all of it. So hopefully, it just continues to trend upward. But yeah, we'll see.
Well, that's amazing. And I really hope that all works out for you. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much again for your time. And I really hope to see you soon.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. This was fun.